This is the Online Learning Podcast, and this is episode 15. Are you making the most of the person you can be? Online learning is your gateway to expanding your horizons in a direction you may not even have thought of. Hello, I'm John Colley. Here on the Online Learning Podcast, we challenge you to find the online learning courses to take you to your next level. Expert in something? Why not create your own course and monetize that expertise? Come on, open this door with me and step inside the Online Learning Podcast. Welcome to this episode of the Online Learning Podcast, and today I'm very excited because we're off to Brazil. Well, not literally, physically, obviously, but I've got the pleasure of the company of Dan Strongin, who is an American gentleman living in Brazil, and he goes under the moniker of the Uncorporate Consultant, and we're going to have some very uncorporate but very interesting business discussions about his Udemy course. But before we do that, let's move straight into this week's marketing tip of the week. And now, the Online Learning Podcast's marketing tip of the week. In this week's marketing tip, I want to cover two issues at the same time. One is validation, and the other is the whole issue of getting credibility for your course by very quickly getting a large number of sign-ups. Now, this is not without its penalty, because most of these sign-ups are going to be free sign-ups. What you do is you go to a platform like Reddit, but it doesn't have to be Reddit. I used Reddit very successfully. Find the subreddit which is most applicable to the subject matter you're covering, whether it's computer programming. In my case, it was to do with entrepreneurship. And join in the conversation there, and then give the opportunity to feed in the offer of going to your course on Udemy or wherever else you're hosting it, and being able to access the course for free with a free coupon code. I make it very clear that the number of coupon codes is limited, and you should set that number with whatever number you're comfortable with. And you can also, of course, very often make it date limited as well. But this will encourage a lot of people to go and sign up and get your course. And hopefully some of those people will actually also take the course. Although, again, I have to admit that in my experience, many people who sign up for these free courses take quite a long time to actually get round to actually taking them. When they take the course, they'll hopefully give you some feedback, so you get some validation on the content of your course. But from the outside, it looks as if you've got you do have a lot of subscribers, and therefore when people come to look and consider taking your course when they arrive on the platform, your course has automatically got a lot of people on it, and therefore has more credibility on the platform that you are on, providing, of course, that number is disclosed, which it is on Udemy. So it's a double whammy. You do get some validation from the students because you'll get questions and feedback very quickly. You'll get credibility on the platform. The downside is that you'll almost certainly have to do this as a free coupon rather than a very, very heavily discounted coupon. So I hope that's a helpful thought. It worked for me, but it's not for everybody, and you sort of pay your money, or indeed, in the case of a free coupon, you don't pay your money, as you take your choice. Today I'm delighted to have my first guest from Brazil, Dan Strongin, who is the Uncorporate Consultant, and I'm sure we're going to have a very interesting discussion about how to better understand business and how to earn money. So Dan, welcome to the Online Learning Podcast.
Thank you very much, John. I'm really excited to be on. It's kind of a thrill.
Well, it's a thrill for me too. Tell me, let's get started, and perhaps help people to understand a little bit more about who you are and what is it that you actually do.
Well, it's always an interesting proposition, because how do you explain somebody who, I'm a child of the 60s, which of course was really the 70s, and went on to become a very long and quite successful career as a five-star chef, working at places like the Ritz-Carlton Corporation, and then moved into supermarkets, then strategic marketing, of course with a focus a lot on food products, and then into quality management and process control, and working with private clients to help them make more money. So it's not the usual career track.
I think versatile is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, and but it whereas it makes it hard to give a 30-second elevator speech. It does mean that I've been very lucky to see, literally intimately hundreds of different businesses on the intimate level that I've worked with or tried to help, and it's like being invited into people's personal lives, because I mostly work with sole proprietors and people working in small to medium businesses.
Right. So I mean, what are you doing now, and how did that translate or transfer into creating online courses?
Well, for years, I followed the old model of consulting, which is I'm the know-it-all. I get paid a lot of money. You pay to have me come in. I come in, spend 3 days, tell you everything you're doing wrong, and then go away. And then 3 months later, come back and tell you, why didn't you do what I told you to do? So, I found problems with that, and I kept looking for more collaborative ways to consult with people that they could contribute, because, the old idea that the consultant knows more about someone else's business is, it's probably not true. You know what I mean? Plus, it's not fun to be a know-it-all. It's much more fun to get together with people and solve problems. And So I transitioned into using the internet and online consulting through different types of groups, whatever was available at the time. At that time, it was Skype, and meeting with people on a regular basis for shorter periods of time, and kind of democratizing the process, where it becomes more like a peer group instead of a hierarchical top-down, I'm the guy who knows everything. And it was very successful. I mean, it's really helped certain kinds of people that it works with. It really works well. And but the problem with consulting is always one of you're only as good as your last project, and you can only get ideas across to people one at a time. And I really passionately believe that we're doing a lot of things in business that make our lives miserable and more difficult because of some of the assumptions that we do business on. So I hope that by creating information products, courses, and other things, I'm able to spread some of that information out to people who are, middle-sized businesses, small businesses who are underserved, and get a little bit better philosophical and base of assumptions for them to manage from.
Yeah, we just have to spread the word and help them to find the online learning platform so they can do that, which is obviously part of the mission of this podcast.
Yeah, I don't believe that I don't believe in instant pudding. I don't believe in, as a cook, I believe in recipes starting out, but knowing how to do a recipe isn't cooking. I believe if you give people the tools they need to understand things for themselves, they'll run with it. It's their business. Their livelihood depends on it.
Yeah. No. So we're going to focus in on your current Udemy course. So perhaps you can introduce that and perhaps cover a little bit about the ground you cover in the course itself, so we can understand how that connects with what you've just been telling us about your consulting style.
Sure. What I found is when I'm talking to people, and and friends, even people that I know, is I look at how talking to them about the potential. Potentially working together. What I find is that they don't have a lot of time. They're working in their businesses. They have a lot going on. Even when you're talking to them on site, they get called away. There's a lot of chaos and uncertainty involved in what they're doing. And of course, everybody loves the challenge and they're working hard, but their lives are really intense, and it's a challenge for them to be able to work on their business because they're working in their business so much. So what I started doing is, asking the question, well, why is it so hard to manage? Why does it require 12-hour days, 6 days a week? And, part of my training and education has the answer to that, but it's unfortunately not very well known. And it's really a very simple answer. It's a basic misunderstanding of nature and the way nature works, that there's variation in nature and that things go up, they go down, and some things you need to react to, but other things you need to just be like the Tao and let them run, let them go, because it's just natural variation. It's just luck. So what I looked at was, okay, how can I best help them? And I created this class allowing them to take their spreadsheets, in particular their financial reports, their profit and loss report, and without having to generate new data, look at that same data and put it in kind of a new pair of glasses to be able to get real-time operational data that they can use right now, and they can also get an idea of whether they should react to something or not and use their resources better, and also what's most likely to happen in the near future so they can plan for it. And that's what the course basically teaches, is a very simple tool to be able to build a new pair of glasses with existing management data.
Very interesting. Absolutely fascinating, actually. I mean, the more I listen to it, the more I want to sort of hang up on you now and go and finish taking the course. But I won't do that, obviously. So you obviously consult. You've already said you consult with a large number of sole proprietors. But you know, how broadly applicable is this course? Who would you say is your target audience?
Well, one of the things you learn is that there is the business that a person starts out. A person wants to make a widget. There's the business, you making the widget, and you're going out and you're talking to people, selling people. But there's a whole part of business that every business has called administrating the business. I mean, once you get beyond startup and you're into keeping it up and running the business, there are certain things that every business has to do, and that involves watching the money, what takes place, making plans, doing strategic planning, working with people, right? And how do you go about preserving what you've learned? Those are questions that come up. And so that's broadly applicable to any industry. I mean, oddly enough, I've worked with everything from people who create the furnaces that make thermocouplers to farmers that are creating grass-fed beef, because the issues they're dealing with are really the same. Mm-hmm. So the course is a very broad, it is neutral as the kind of business, because every business ultimately looks at some kind of business report to figure out how they're doing.
Yeah.
If only to know if they have the money to pay their bills.
Yes, yeah. Yes, it's all about watching the cash flow, which is obviously critical. So, how would you summarise the benefits of taking the course? If you take the person who's at ground zero, if you like, and who's about to embark on the course, how would you summarise the benefits of what they're going to get out of it once they finish taking the course? Where from A to B, what's the journey they're going on?
Well, starting in the beginning, for a complete beginner, I have some basic fundamentals based on what's called the generally accepted accounting practices, or the GAAP, of what the legal definition of a profit and loss report, a balance sheet, and a little bit on the cash flow. Now, it's actually, I make it a lot of fun. It doesn't take long because there really isn't a lot of definition to it. It's the reports have all been kind of perverted by people trying to use them to get usable management information, when really that's not what they were set up for. They were set up so that after the stock market crashed at 29, so investors would know whether or not their money was really worth something. So, and then we go from there into a lot of the pointing out the problems that exist in most profit and loss reports when you try to use them for management. I mean, misleading things, mistakes that you can make that look good on paper, but that probably have nothing to do with the reality. And if you follow them, you're just going to make things worse for yourself and make yourself have to work harder. And then from there, we teach a tool that is very easy to use, taking the same data that's already there in your books, in your Quicken or whatever it is, Peachtree, whatever program you use to do it, even if you're doing it in the old by hand by ledgers. And in 30 minutes or less, with just a pencil and paper, get the context and the meaning from the data, what it really means in the real world, right? In the world of material things, where the rubber hits the road. And then be able to separate out from that what is a meaningful trend and what's just dumb luck. What's just the luck of the draw, natural variation. You could work until the cows come home and you wouldn't make any difference, because it's designed in by the way you go about doing the things you do. Now, you could change the way you do things, but that's another topic, right? And then there's things that happen that are just out of the ordinary that you really have to deal with. I mean, a classic case of that is the stock market crash of 2008. Something that no one, well, they maybe could have foreseen it, but no one can do anything about it. It's too many people and out of our control. But you have to react to it. If you don't, if you didn't change in 2008 the way you did business, you had a lot of trouble in your business later on. So it allows you to get those glasses in only 30 minutes. So you're no longer looking in the rear view mirror of your car at the line in the rear view mirror. You're looking at the road in front of you, so you can see the potholes in front of you and not hit the people crossing the street. And you also know whether or not you have to do something, which means you have a lot more energy and resources to apply towards adding value for your customers instead of making things more confusing for yourself. Because in my experience, the biggest problem people have in business working with people is they do too much of the wrong things and aren't clear about what are the right things to do.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. I wrote a blog post a little while back, which was very simply entitled "Why Profits Do Not Equal Cash," in response to having had a small private company client who couldn't understand why their profits were great, but they kept on running out of cash. And it sounds like your course goes into much more depth and much more insight than my relatively short podcast. So it sounds like it's an incredibly valuable tool and something that people should really, if they're running a small business, should definitely take a close look at and try and learn from.
Well, I don't usually bring this up because it always sounds like it's too good to be true. But these ideas were actually started back in 1930s at AT&T by a man named Dr. Schuhart, who invented the tool that we use. It's been improved and simplified since then. But if you look at the growth of AT&T into the first world monopoly, if you look at the United States, because they were applied in the United States in World War II, and how we built up an incredible industrial economy in only 8 years, then they traveled to Japan and were at the core of what's called the Japanese miracle in the 1960s, where they went from being an atomic bombed country, which oddly enough they seem to be again, but this time they did it to themselves, and all the way to the second largest economy in the world, which they held for a very, very long time, and it's a small island. And then, they're in companies like Colgate and Harley Davidson, et cetera, but they were in the realm of production. And what I've done is taken that tool, which applies to production, yes, but its real use is in the management of people. Where it really shows its stars is in managing the administration, the numbers, the plans, the results, so you can get to the causes and really affect the results, and presents another whole view of the world, different from the basic management objectives, setting targets, that kind of thing.
Yeah. No, it sounds. I'm now even more eager to take your course. This is. Yeah. I think I'll just cancel the rest of the day and just get on with it.
I wish I'd thought of it, but then if I thought of it, I'd be dead. So I guess it's better that I'm just taking it and sharing it in another area.
Well, you're at least you're in a position now. We have the technology where you can actually make it so much more widely accessible because of the nature of online learning, as opposed to relying on textbooks and word of mouth, which is obviously a much slower way of disseminating information. Let's take a sideways move now, because and I do this to everybody before we start talking about the discount that I've strong-armed you into. Sorry, bad pun that. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about your experience of creating courses, and perhaps you can give some tips or advice to other people who are creating courses based on your experience.
Well, again, I took a course to learn how to take the course, because one of the things I learned being a consultant is that it's always good to use other people. I'm a firm believer that I can't know everything. So I save a lot of time, even, okay, it's like a recipe in a cookbook. I won't learn how to cook from a recipe, but at least the recipe gets me started and I know what to do. So I really recommend that people, if they go to do a course, that they read some of the things that other people have written, and also take some of the courses that other people have provided in how to do a course. And there's a course a certain person does on, strategic course development, for instance. There's a course on, how to do the video. There's a lot of them, and you find the person you resonate with, and you're bound to get ahead, because there's a lot of technical stuff that turns into a nightmare. Also, I would start with a short course first, not a long course.
It's very kind of you. The strategic design course is actually mine, so whether you're aware of that
That's
or not,
the truth.
I'm extremely grateful for that plug.
And I am. As a matter of fact, I'm taking it right now to help me figure out what the next course will be, because I made the mistake of doing a 6-hour course because I thought it was important. But that was 7 months worth of work to get it where I wanted it. Yeah. And a lot of it because, again, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was just feeling my way. I think it's better to start with a smaller course. People are more likely to buy it at first because the price will be lower. It lets you work your way through and build up to the point where then you can do the big courses and lead people into them. So I think that was a strategic mistake on my part.
Well, I'm a great believer in courses being between an hour and an hour and a half, priced accordingly, but with very specific objectives so that people can select the specific thing that they want to address and get that issue dealt with in a time which is manageable for them. And if you do have very long courses, which are phenomenally valuable, the difficulty is that, it'll take you I won't be able to do your course in 6.5 hours. I'm probably going to take a month to do your course because I'm going to have to do it, a lecture here, a lecture there, a lecture somewhere else. And I do believe in keeping these compact. It also means you can keep producing the content and get these courses out. I mean, my first course, my startup funding course, took me 6 months because I didn't know what I was doing and I was learning along the way and all the rest of it. And that was still a lot of work and took a long time. And to be productive for us as course creators, I think you've got to be able to semi-industrialize the production so that you can produce them reasonably efficiently. Otherwise, the time and money earned simply doesn't balance out. If you spend 6 months writing a course and you make $1,000 from it, that's a fairly poor return on your investment.
No, absolutely. And I think a better approach to drawing people into the deeper courses is to have courses, instead of having one big catch-all course, break it up in pieces, then lead people into the bigger courses if they need it. Yeah. If they want it and if they need it, if they see the need for it. Yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah, no,
of course, I wish I'd taken your course when I started out, but not really. It was a great learning experience. I'm really glad I did it. I think in the end I ended up with a great course for the people that want to go into that depth. And people who don't, they can skim it because I set it up so that you can skip things. I realized that, at first I wanted everybody to do the course the way I wrote it, but let's face it, I skip around in courses, so why should I expect anyone else not to do the same?
Yeah. It is. I mean, doing your first course is a great learning experience in its own right, teaching you just how to do courses and how to make the learning experience better for your student. And then we build on that for, in our latter courses, inevitably. Let's move on, and we have, before we started talking, discussed a discount that you have for the online learning podcast community. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit about that and the code you're going to create to make the course available.
Well, I'm going to, what I do is, my course it's not inexpensive. It's $249, normal price. And in my site, I have it available for half price, 50% off all the time. But for your course, John, because, these are people in the community and they're shown enough interest to listen to your podcast, I wanted to make it available at $99, which is, I think, somewhere around a 65% discount or something like that. Don't quote me on it. We're going to do a coupon code, which is going to be, do you want me to tell the coupon code now?
Absolutely, yeah, because we will.
Okay, it would be OLP understand 99. That's OLP understand 99.
Brilliant.
And
okay, that's really helpful, and that's very generous of you, and I'm sure everybody appreciates that very substantial discount. Again, I just have to make my disclosure here. If you want to get the course at that price and you want to go directly, just go to the Udemy website, search for Understand Your Business, Earn More Money, which is the name of the course. And if you put in that code OLP Understand 99, you'll get the discount and you won't go through the affiliate scheme. As everybody knows who's listened to other episodes of this podcast, I do provide you with an affiliate link if you'd like to support the podcast. And if you go and use the link jbdcolley.com/understand, that will have that's a pretty link. It'll take you to the site. It'll give you the discount, and it'll also give me some benefit from the affiliate program. All of this will be in the show notes. The show notes are going to be at jbdcolley.com/OLP015 for episode 15, which this is. And you can find it all there. And again, it's all fully disclosed, but take whichever route suits you better. And obviously, Daniel's done a phenomenal amount of work on his course, and I would be perfectly happy and indeed delighted if you feel that you want to, give him the full benefit that you can after sharing obviously some of the income with Udemy, who are kind enough to host everything. So that's the rather long-winded disclosure out the way, but I do like to be totally transparent, because I hate these oil, sort of, what do they call it, hair oil salesmen who are sort of, slipping things past you under the table. And I want this to be fully disclosed and fully transparent. Daniel, where can people find you? I'm sure after listening to what you've had to say, they're going to be very interested to know more about your thinking and the subjects you cover. Where can people go out and find you on the internet?
Well, I have, my site's name is Manage Naturally, and it's managenaturally.com. Or you can go to danstrongin.com and it goes to the same place. I'm also on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm in Pop Expert for people who want to have one-on-one sessions. And also I do a live office about the second or third week of every month. I mean, next month it's the second because of Thanksgiving, but in the U.S. But it's on Spreecast, and it's first come first serve, and it takes 1,000 people. So anybody who shows up, we talk about different issues, usually related to my class and my classes as I release the other classes. But it's a great place to go, and just if you want to chat, ask a quick question, and I'll do my best to help you turn it around into other questions so that you can really think about it more clearly.
Okay, well, managenaturally.com and danstrongin.com I've got. Maybe after this conversation, you can just send me over the links to your live office or the Spreecast so that I can make those available in the show notes and people can then find them. Even if it's, they may be listening to this, several months down the road. We're recording this in October 2013. But, with the caveat that, I'm trying to make this show as evergreen as possible. But obviously things move on, and there's no guarantee in a year's time Daniel won't have altered his business model in some slight way. So with that caveat, we'll obviously make as much information available as Dan is willing to share with you. I think that's it. Dan, thank you very much for coming all the way from Brazil and sharing your knowledge and your experience with everybody here. Absolutely fascinating. I'm now, as I say, more eager than ever to get over and take a deeper dive into your course. I better do the post-production on this podcast episode first, though. So thank you for joining us on the Online Learning Podcast today, and it's been a great pleasure to have you as a guest.
You bet, John. Thank you very much.
Well, my thanks to Dan for giving of his time and providing the other side of that absolutely fascinating conversation. I really appreciate it, Dan. I'm going to make sure that all the details he's provided are in the show notes. You can find those, as ever, at jbdcolley.com/OLP015 for episode 15. But now let's crack over and take a look at this week's free course recommendation. Let's take a look at this week's free course of the week. For this week's free course recommendation of the week, we're keeping on the business strategy theme, and I've found a fascinating course for you called The Foundations of Business Strategy, which introduces strategic analysis frameworks and their underlying theory. Now, the author is a gentleman by the name of Michael Lennox, indeed Professor Michael Lennox, because he's the Slover Professor of Business at the University of Virginia in their Darden School of Business. It's 15 lectures, 7 hours of content, and it covers the competitive context in which an organization operates. And I've looked at the courses actually, and I think they look very interesting indeed. This is MBA 101 stuff, and it's amazing that you can get this sort of content on Udemy. I'll make sure the link is in the website. The course is called Foundations of Business Strategy. There are no less than 18,482 people taking this course as we speak. It's had over 150 reviews, and most of them are 5-star because the average is 4.5 or 4.6 stars. So a glorious piece of free education for you. The Foundations of Business Strategy by Michael Lennox. So that's it for another episode of the Online Learning Podcast. Don't forget, if you've got any questions for me, people you'd like me to interview, issues you'd like me to raise, whatever it is, you can email me, john@jbdcolley.com. I would love to hear from you and interact with you. You can find all the information and the links and everything at the show notes page, which is jbdcolley.com/OLP15. Thank you very much for spending your time with me today. I know how valuable your time is, and I do really value that you share it with me. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the Online Learning Podcast. So that's it for another episode of the Online Learning Podcast. I really appreciate you being with me. If you enjoyed the show, I would really appreciate it if you would go over to iTunes and leave me a rating, preferably a 5-star rating if you think it's worth it, and a comment. And then if you email me, john@jbdcolley.com, that's Juliet Bravo Delta Colley.com, I will send you a free coupon code to my Udemy course, An Introduction to Startups, which has got 40 minutes of video teaching you all about startups. So thank you very much for spending time with me today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. This has been the Online Learning Podcast.